Who were the top 5 powerful men in the Bible? In the Bible, there were many people who had a big impact. But these 5 men were especially remarkable because of their special qualities, experiences with God, and important roles in carrying out God's plans. First place, Melchizedek. Let's begin our journey with Melchizedek, an intriguing figure found in the book of Genesis. In Genesis, chapter 14, verses 18 to 20, we learn about his encounter with Abraham. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Melchizedek, the king of Salem, brought out bread and wine and blessed Abraham, who in turn gave him a tenth of everything he had. This encounter between Melchizedek and Abraham holds great significance, as it foreshadowed the future establishment of the Lord's Supper, a sacred meal observed by Christians. Melchizedek held the unique position of being both a king and a priest of God Most High, which set him apart. His priesthood predates the later Levitical priesthood that was established through the Mosaic Law. Hebrews, chapter 7, verses 1 to 3 sheds further light on Melchizedek, stated that this Melchizedek was king of Salem and priest of God Most High. He met Abraham returning from the defeat of the kings and blessed him, and Abraham gave him a tenth of everything. First, the name Melchizedek means king of righteousness. Then also, king of Salem means king of peace. Without father or mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life, resembling the Son of God, he remains a priest forever. The author of Hebrews highlights the uniqueness of Melchizedek's priesthood. His name, Melchizedek, means king of righteousness, and he was also known as the king of peace. Interestingly, there is no record of his lineage, birth, or death, which makes him resemble the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who would later come. As a result, Melchizedek serves as a foreshadowing of Christ's eternal priesthood. Hebrews, chapter 7, verses 11 to 17, elaborates on the significance of Melchizedek's priesthood. We read, "If perfection could have been attained through the Levitical priesthood, and indeed the law given to the people established that priesthood, why was there still need for another priest to come, one in the order of Melchizedek, not in the order of Aaron? For when the priesthood is changed, the law must be changed also. He of whom these things are said belonged to a different tribe, and no one from that tribe has ever served at the altar. For it is clear that our Lord descended from Judah, and in regard to that tribe Moses said nothing about priests. And what we have said is even more clear if another priest like Melchizedek appears, one who has become a priest not on the basis of a regulation as to his ancestry, but on the basis of the power of an indestructible life. For it is declared, 'You are a priest forever,' in the order of Melchizedek." The author of Hebrews contrasts the Levitical priesthood with the priesthood of Melchizedek. It contrasts the temporary Levitical priesthood, established through the Mosaic Law, with the everlasting priesthood of Melchizedek. The Levitical priesthood required continual sacrifices for the forgiveness of sins, but Melchizedek's priesthood, like that of Christ, was based on an indestructible life and not on ancestral lineage or regulations. Melchizedek's encounter with Abraham and his dual role as king and priest of God Most High were powerful symbols that anticipated the coming of Jesus Christ, who would embody both roles. Melchizedek's priesthood stands as a profound representation of Christ's eternal priesthood, offering a superior sacrifice and providing everlasting salvation. Second place, Moses. Now let's turn our attention to Moses, a towering figure in the history of the Jewish people. Moses was born during a time of great danger and was chosen by God to lead the Hebrews out of slavery in Egypt. In Exodus, chapter 3, verse 10, we see God calling Moses, saying, "Go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." God spoke to Moses through a burning bush, giving him the task of confronting Pharaoh and guiding the Israelites to the promised land. At first, Moses was unsure of himself and doubted his abilities. But God reassured him and revealed his divine name, saying, "I am who I am." Exodus 3 verse 14. With God's power and guidance, Moses confronted Pharaoh with a series of plagues to demonstrate God's authority and demand the release of the Israelites. Eventually, Pharaoh relented, and the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt began. One of the most incredible miracles associated with Moses was the parting of the Red Sea. In Exodus, chapter 14, verses 15 to 22, we witness this extraordinary event. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water, so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them, and I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots and his horsemen." Then the angel of God, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, 20 coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side, so neither went near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. God commanded Moses to stretch out his hand over the sea, and the waters miraculously parted, allowing the Israelites to walk on dry ground with walls of water on either side. This awe-inspiring display showcased God's faithfulness, protection, and deliverance. Later, on Mount Sinai, Moses received the 10 Commandments directly from God. These commandments, found in Exodus, chapter 20, verses 1 to 17, provided a moral and ethical framework for the Israelites, guiding their relationship with God and one another. Moses played a crucial role in leading the Israelites through the wilderness for 40 years, despite facing numerous challenges. He remained faithful and interceded on their behalf before God, even when they were rebellious and doubtful. Moses continued to receive divine guidance, including instructions for the construction of the tabernacle, a portable sanctuary where God's presence would dwell among his people. Moses' life came to an end before the Israelites entered the Promised Land. In Deuteronomy, chapter 34, verses 5 to 7, we read about his passing. "And Moses the servant of the Lord died there in Moab, as the Lord had said. He buried him in Moab, in the valley opposite Beth Peor, but to this day no one knows where his grave is." Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. We learn that Moses died in Moab, and God himself buried him. Moses lived to be 120 years old, with his eyes still strong and his strength intact. Moses' life was characterized by remarkable faith, leadership, and a close relationship with God. His role as a prophet, lawgiver, and mediator between God and the people of Israel remains unparalleled in Jewish history. Third place, David. Now let's turn our attention to David, a remarkable shepherd who became the greatest king of Israel. David's journey began humbly, but he rose to prominence through God's anointing. In 1 Samuel, chapter 16, verses 12 to 13, we witness the moment when God chose David. So he sent for him and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Samuel then went to Ramah. Despite facing challenges, such as battles against giants and the envy of King Saul, David remained steadfast in his faith. He expressed his devotion to God through beautiful psalms, displayed incredible bravery, and established Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. One of the most famous stories about David is his encounter with the Philistine giant, Goliath. In Samuel, chapter 17, verses 45 to 47, We see David's unwavering trust in God as he confronts Goliath. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." With faith as his weapon, David defeated Goliath using a single stone from his sling, demonstrating that his victory came from God's strength. This event showcased David's courage and his deep reliance on the power of the Lord. David's reign as king was filled with both triumphs and challenges. He united the 12 tribes of Israel, established Jerusalem as a center of power and worship, and brought the Ark of the Covenant to the city. However, David also faced personal and moral struggles. After ruling for 40 years, David's reign came to an end. In 1 Kings, chapter 2, verses 10 to 11, we learn about his death and burial. Then David rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. He had reigned 40 years over Israel, 7 years in Hebron and 33 in Jerusalem. David, the shepherd king, left an enduring legacy in the history and spirituality of Israel. Despite his imperfections, his unwavering devotion to God, his poetic expressions of faith, and his establishment of Jerusalem as a holy city solidified his position as a central figure in biblical history. 4th place, Samson. As we continue our journey, we come across Samson, renowned for his extraordinary physical strength. In Judges, chapter 16, verses 28 to 30, we witness Samson's final act of bravery. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Then Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood. Bracing himself against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other, Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived. Samson, known for his long hair and supernatural strength, was chosen by God to rescue Israel from the oppression of the Philistines. Although Samson had his flaws and weaknesses, his life teaches us about the consequences of disobedience and the limitless mercy of God. Samson's story begins in Judges 13, where an angel appears to his parents, foretelling Samson's birth and instructing them to raise him as a Nazirite, dedicated to God from birth. As a Nazirite, Samson was to avoid certain things, such as wine, unclean food, and cutting his hair. In Judges, chapter 14 to 16, we witness Samson's encounters with the Philistines and his displays of strength. One of the most famous episodes is when Samson encounters a lion on his way to Timnah. In Judges, chapter 14, verses 5 to 6, we read about this encounter and Samson's incredible strength. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Samson's strength was a manifestation of the Spirit of the Lord working through him. However, despite his immense physical strength, Samson struggled with moral weaknesses, particularly his attraction to Philistine women. His relationship with Delilah, a Philistine woman, became his downfall. Samson's life serves as a cautionary tale, illustrating the consequences of yielding to temptation and straying from God's commandments. Despite his failures, Samson's story also reveals God's mercy and his willingness to use imperfect individuals for his purposes. 5th place, Abraham. Finally, we come to Abraham, the father of many nations. In Genesis, chapter 12, verses 1 to 3, we hear God's call to Abraham. The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people and your father's household, to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Abraham showed unwavering faith by leaving his homeland to follow God's promise of descendants and a land to call their own. He trusted God even in seemingly impossible situations, like when he was asked to offer his beloved son, Isaac. Abraham's story begins in Genesis, chapter 12, where God calls him to leave his country, his people, and his father's household and go to a land that God would reveal to him. Abraham obeyed God's call and embarked on a journey of faith. Throughout his life, Abraham faced various challenges and witnessed God's faithfulness. In Genesis, chapter 15, God promised Abraham that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. Despite his old age and his wife Sarah's inability to conceive, Abraham believed God's promise, and his faith was considered righteousness. One of the most significant tests of Abraham's faith came in Genesis, chapter 22, when God commanded him to sacrifice his son Isaac. Although this command seemed to contradict God's promise of descendants through Isaac, Abraham prepared to carry out the sacrifice in obedience. Just as Abraham was about to sacrifice Isaac, God intervened and provided a ram as a substitute. This event demonstrated Abraham's unwavering trust in God's plan and his willingness to surrender even the most precious things in obedience. In Hebrews, chapter 11, verses 17 to 19, we find a reflection on Abraham's faith during the testing of Isaac. By faith Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead, and so in a manner of speaking he did receive Isaac back from death. Abraham's willingness to offer Isaac in obedience foreshadowed the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus Christ, God's own Son, who would be offered for the sins of humanity. Abraham's faith and obedience were also demonstrated when he interceded on behalf of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. In Genesis, chapter 18, Abraham pleaded with God to spare the righteous within those cities, negotiating with God down to 10 righteous people. Although the cities were ultimately destroyed, this event showed Abraham's compassion and his willingness to stand up for others. Abraham's faithfulness and obedience laid the foundation for God's covenant with his chosen people. Through his lineage, Abraham became the father of many nations, and all peoples on earth have been blessed through him, ultimately through the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. As we conclude our journey through the lives of these powerful men, Melchizedek, Moses, David, Samson, and Abraham, we see their unique qualities that set them apart. They exhibited great faith, faced overwhelming challenges, and left lasting legacies that continue to inspire us today. As we reflect on their lives, may we find encouragement to trust in God, follow His calling, and make a positive impact in our generation. Thank you for joining us on this captivating journey through the lives of these influential men in the Bible. If you found this story insightful, please like and share it with others. Remember, each one of us has the potential to make a difference in the world when we surrender ourselves to God's plan. Until next time, may God abundantly bless you.